Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today is a glorious Thursday, and I am absolutely buzzing with excitement to dive into the latest drama unfolding in Port Charles. Grab your favorite mug of Corinthos coffee, settle in, and let us talk about the absolute masterclass in soapy tension we have been blessed with this week. I feel so incredibly electrified by the brewing war between Brooklyn Quartermaine Chase and Willow Kane because to me, it finally proves that the writers are entirely committed to blowing up this canvas in the most spectacular way possible. I know a lot of people are saying this storyline is dragging or that it is just another repetitive love triangle, but I actually think the slow burn is exactly what is needed because I feel like we are not just watching a love triangle, we are watching a psychological thriller wrapped in daytime drama, and the payoff is going to be legendary. When I saw that specific scene at the Quartermaine boathouse, the one where Michael Corinthos orchestrated the collision course between a bathing suit-clad Willow and Harrison Chase, my jaw practically unhinged. The way the afternoon sunlight caught the water behind them, while Willow reached out to gently stroke Chase's arm, was chillingly brilliant. It was not framed as a romantic reunion, it was framed as a predator playing with her food. And I am completely obsessed with this villainous era for Willow. I genuinely think we are missing the point if we view Willow Kane as a victim in any of this. The way I see it, the writers have been meticulously planting the seeds for Willow's descent into absolute madness for years. And it is finally blooming. I love the way the lighting shifted in that boathouse scene, casting a slight shadow over Willow's face as she looked up at her ex-husband. When she pitched that chief of staff position to him, asking him to move to Washington, D.C. to work for her, I actually gasped at my television screen. The sheer unadulterated audacity to look a married man in the eye, a man whose wife you are actively antagonizing, and offer him a job that requires him to be by your side constantly, is peak soap opera manipulation. I think this is the best they have written Willow because she genuinely believes she is the heroine of her own story. In her twisted, fractured mind, she thinks she is merely being a supportive friend. She is completely blind to her own toxicity, and I find her lack of self-awareness absolutely fascinating to watch. Every time I see Willow play the innocent, wide-eyed victim, I am immediately reminded of her dark, incredibly lethal history. I feel like we have to anchor her current behavior to her past to truly appreciate the genius of this writing. Let us not forget that this is the same woman who married a dying Harrison Chase out of pity, only to carry on an emotional and eventually physical affair with Michael Corinthos. This is the same woman who cheated on Michael with his own uncle Drew Kane, and now, as if that track record was not destructive enough, she is literally drugging Drew with a paralytic to keep him in a locked-in state while she flirts with Chase at the boathouse. When Willow broke down in tears in front of Chase earlier this week, confessing that she is guilty of so much and that she no longer wants to be married to Drew, I felt this overwhelming wave of dramatic irony. Chase is standing there comforting her with his classic unwavering hero complex, completely oblivious to the fact that the woman crying on his shoulder is actively committing a felony against her current husband. It is a masterclass in dramatic tension, and I am eating up every single second of it. And then, like a divine intervention of pure soapy perfection, Tracy Quartermaine walked by that boathouse. I cannot even begin to express how much joy Jane Elliott brings me in this storyline. When Tracy stopped in her tracks, took one look at Willow stroking Chase's arm, and immediately jumped to the absolute worst, yet entirely accurate conclusion, I cheered out loud in my living room. I think the writer's choice to have Tracy be the one to catch them instead of Brook was brilliant because it made me feel the generational weight of Quartermaine protectiveness. Tracy does not mince words. In her delivery of the line, "Pack your little bags and our lawyers will be in touch," was nothing short of iconic. Tracy Quartermaine is the moral compass we never knew we needed in this scenario. She sees right through Willow's sweet cult girl facade. Tracy knows exactly what emotional cheating looks like, and she is not about to let some doe-eyed manipulator destroy her granddaughter's marriage. I feel so deeply for Harrison Chase right now, even though his naivety is driving me absolutely up the wall. The way I interpret Chase's psychology in this moment is that he is suffering from a terminal case of white knight syndrome. He genuinely wants to believe the best in people, especially Willow, because admitting that she is a manipulative predator would mean admitting that his entire past relationship with her was built on a lie. When Chase faced off with Tracy defending himself and insisting that the interaction was innocent, I felt a profound sense of pity for him. I think Chase is absolutely right that he has no intention of divorcing Brooklyn. But here is why his dialogue backed up my take. He is completely missing the forest for the trees. He is so focused on defending his own honor that he cannot see the trap Willow is setting for him. It is incredibly tragic, and it makes the impending fallout all the more devastating. This brings me to the absolute powerhouse that is Brook Lynn Quartermaine Chase. I feel like the writers are doing something incredibly special with Brook Lynn right now. For the past year, we have seen her soften into the supportive, loving wife and a dedicated mother figure to baby Phoebe. She has embraced her Quartermaine heritage and the genteel lifestyle that comes with it. But underneath all those designer clothes and corporate deception meetings, the Bensonhurst scrapper is still very much alive, and Willow is poking the bear. When Brook Lynn confided in someone, presumably Michael, which is a whole nother layer of brilliant, twisted irony that Willow was going after her husband, the tension in her voice gave me chills. I loved the way Amanda Setton played that scene. Her jaw tight, her eyes flashing with a primal, territorial instinct. Brook Lynn is not just gonna roll over and let Willow steal her husband. I believe the absolute best scene of this entire arc so far was when Brook Lynn issued that fierce, uncompromising threat to Willow. When Brook Lynn looked her dead in the eye and promised to ruin her political career if she did not back off, I felt an adrenaline rush. That was not an empty threat. That was Lois Cerullo's daughter stepping up to the plate. I know some fans are worried that Brook Lynn is going to look insecure or paranoid, but I actually think her paranoia is completely justified, and it makes her so incredibly relatable. Brook Lynn knows Willow's history. She knows that Chase's obsession with rescuing Willow cost him a demotion at the PCPD. Brook Lynn is drawing a line in the sand, and I am entirely here for the inevitable, explosive physical altercation that is brewing. If it comes down to a knockdown, drag-out catfight, Brook Lynn is going to wipe the floor with her. And I think the canvas desperately needs that kind of visceral, old-school soap opera confrontation right now. But what makes this entire dynamic an absolute masterpiece of television is the puppet master pulling the strings, Michael Corinthos. I am so fiercely loyal to this dark, vindictive version of Michael. The fact that Michael is actively setting up a cheating trap for his own wife and his former best friend just to blow up Brook Lynn's marriage is the kind of Shakespearean toxicity I live for. Michael knows that Brook Lynn was the driver who fled the scene of the accident that ruined Isaiah Gannon's hand. He knows Brook Lynn is carrying this massive crushing guilt, and he is using it to his advantage. When Michael arranged for Willow and Chase to run into each other at the boathouse, I felt this wicked sense of glee. Michael is using Willow's own treacherous nature against her, and he is using Chase's hero complex against him. Michael is playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And I think it is the most compelling character evolution we have seen from him in a decade. I feel like we also need to talk about how Brook Lynn's secret is compounding her insecurity. When Portia Robinson came to the Quartermaine mansion asking for help with Isaiah's situation, the way Brook Lynn tensed up was a masterclass in subtle acting. I think Brook Lynn is terrified that her world is about to collapse. She is terrified that the hit-and-run secret will come out, that she will lose the adoption of baby Phoebe, and that Chase, with his rigid black and white moral code, will never forgive her for lying. That vulnerability is exactly what makes her so defensive against Willow. Brook Lynn feels like she's standing on a trapdoor and Willow is holding the lever. It is a brilliant psychological layering by the writers, ensuring that the stakes in this love triangle are not just romantic but existential. If Brook Lynn loses Chase, she loses everything. And let us circle back to that phenomenal line from Tracy Grandy's A Good Judge of Character. That line is the thematic thesis of this entire storyline. I believe Tracy Quartermaine is the only person on this canvas who sees the board clearly. She knows that Willow's good girl routine is a weaponized facade. In my opinion, Tracy is going to be the ultimate catalyst for Willow's downfall. Tracy has already covered up the damage on Brook Lynn's black BMW, making her an accomplice in the hit-and-run cover-up. She's fiercely protecting her granddaughter's family, and she will not hesitate to destroy Willow to keep Chase and Brook Lynn together. I love the way Tracy looked at Chase after the boathouse incident, her eyes narrowing with a mix of disappointment and protective fury. She put Chase on probation, and I think that is exactly what he needs. Chase needs to realize that his marriage is a privilege, not a guarantee, and that his blind spot for Willow is a direct threat to his family. I know there is a vocal segment of the fandom complaining that Chase is being written as too dumb or too oblivious, but I actually think the slow realization is exactly what is needed, because I feel like the betrayal has to sting. Chase is a detective. He is trained to see the facts, but when it comes to Willow, his emotional bias completely overrides his investigative instincts. When Chase warned Jacinda Bracken about Michael's manipulative nature, telling her that if Michael seems too good to be true, it is because he is, I literally screamed at my screen, The irony Chase can see Michael's darkness perfectly clearly, but he is completely blind to the fact that Willow is cut from the exact same treacherous cloth. The way I interpret it, the writers are deliberately highlighting Chase's hypocrisy to make his eventual awakening that much more powerful. When Chase finally realizes that Willow has been drugging Drew and trying to manipulate him into an affair, the emotional devastation is going to be absolute cinema. The impending catfight between Brooklyn and Willow is what I'm looking forward to the most. I feel like daytime television has strayed away from the raw physical confrontations between women, opting instead for boardroom arguments and passive-aggressive remarks. But Brooklyn is a Bensonhurst scrapper. When the claws finally come out, it is not going to be a polite disagreement. I think the writer's choice to push Brooklyn to the absolute edge, threatening her marriage, her adopted child, and her freedom all at once is designed to strip away her quartermain refinement and unleash the fighter underneath. I want to see the hair pulling. I want to see the hissing. I want to see Brooklyn physically defend her territory, because in my opinion, Willow has pushed her far beyond the limits of reasonable communication. Willow's smug, quiet manipulation deserves a loud, chaotic reality check, and Brooklyn is the perfect character to deliver it. In conclusion, I am entirely hopelessly in love with where the show is heading right now. The intricate web of lies, the psychological warfare, the history-infused character motivations, it is all working so flawlessly for me. I feel so incredibly invested in Brooklyn's fight to save her marriage. And I am equally invested in watching Willow's spectacular self-inflicted destruction. The writers are honoring the history of these characters while pushing them into thrilling, uncharted territory. If you cannot see the genius in Michael's puppet master routine, Tracy's fierce protectiveness, or Willow's terrifying delusion, I genuinely think you are missing out on one of the greatest eras of daytime drama we have had in years. I cannot wait to see how this boathouse betrayal explodes. And you better believe I will be cheering for Brooklyn every single step of the way